I watched on the plane the other night, coming home, the Sopranos, uh, Saints of Newark, many Saints of Newark thing.
Yeah, I was not a fan
I know
of the
nobody
show.
was. I know it, unfortunately. And watching it actually, because it was just off, like Sopranos, you were just kind of like all in, whatever, and
Yeah.
Godfather-ish. And this one was just off, where I was like, what's with us Italians? You know what I mean? It's like when you watch a comedian, that like when you watch a bad comic, you're like, oh, am I that far away from what this guy's doing?
I have texted Big J Okerson, Ari Shafir, and Sal Volcano and Dan Soder. All of them at separate times. I've texted them and said about comedy. What we do is so embarrassing. We're like a step to the left of wedding bands. I mean, this is like
Oh,
go on Amazon Prime and just do a deep dive through these specials. It's mortifying. Like,
I, I know, but isn't that like the bad version of it, or is it? Do you think it's even the good versions?
that's why I started texting it to him, because I was like, I used to think that this was just the bad version of
Oh
it. I was like,
no.
it seems to be the bulk of it. And like, and it's
Uh,
honestly, it starts to become like no offense to any wedding bands, but like, you when you leave a wedding and the band was good, you're not like, of course the band was good. You're like, they had a pretty good band at that wedding.
right.
I think that's what comedy is now. It's like, he wasn't bad.
Whoa, that was all right. Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
rough.
I
What you
saw a
do?
special recently, and I won't mention it. And I watched it in in terror, in terror, because I was like, I'm I feel like I'm 1/10 of a degree away from what's happening on the screen right now. Like I feel like I could eat. It's because you do carry this fear of, you don't want you work very hard. Comedians work very hard to try
Yeah,
and stay original and not be hacky and not repeat what other things you see and all that other kind of stuff. And then when you see someone who just misses it, it's
yeah.
uh it's frightening.
I do that a lot myself, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. You're tapping into something I never thought of before or realized. What you just said, though, it's so insightful. It's like it's like there is a certain there are subgenres of stand up comedy,
Hmm.
and each one of us participates in one of those subgenres primarily. And when you do it right, it's great,
Hmm.
or at least good. And when you're off, it's the hackiest thing ever. And it doesn't take much to be off. It's just a few, like you said, ticks over.
Yep.
So like you and I are very different, but
Uh,
like I know what the hacky version of both of us is. I know what it is. We've both seen it.
yeah.
And, for me, it's like when I see the guy that's like, I'll tell you another thing I'm fed up with. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no.
I know. I always love those guys. It's like they've run out of real things to be angry about. And they're
Yeah.
like, damn toothpaste dispensers.
Yeah. It's never a real thing, either. It's
Yeah.
never like, yeah, but like like I would classify I would classify you in like where I put like the guys like Regan and stuff like that, where I'm like, here's a guy that's like very clean for the most part, and it's very observational, and there's a lot of stuff about family in there, but it's really sharp and really well written and really funny. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But if
Hmm.
you see tons of guys that do exactly what I just described, except the funny part, and for whatever reason, I don't know, like it just doesn't. It's so, but like there are other guys like Okerson, who I was just talking about. Jay's a storyteller.
Right.
He's so good at it. He's so funny.
Yeah.
How many bad storyteller comedians have you seen? We've seen tons.
Right. But I think
Yeah.
as you're saying it, it it really is that classic hackneyed thing, the hack thing, the you've seen it before, the derivative thing. It's like, if as long as you're writing and trying to move in some direction that's honest and that you haven't seen other people do, even if they miss, I can watch them and not feel bad for all of comedy, because I feel like at least I've never seen someone talk about a monkey using two Q-tips at once, whatever that, I'm just pulling that out. Like, at least he missed while going into the woods where I've never been before. I'd much rather, I can stomach that. I can't stomach when they're like, it just comes a little bit like, I've seen 100 versions of this thing.
I think it's, for me, and I think this is what you're saying, at least to some extent, it's the difference between seeing somebody doing comedy and somebody doing an impression of a comedian,
Yeah.
And like, I remember saying to, I did some shows with Michael Ian Black, and, he, as far as I know, started just in sketch and stuff with the state. And then he did, he's an actor and all that stuff, but he was doing stand up. And I remember I said to him, and I was like, Michael, I mean, this is a huge compliment. Please understand that it's a compliment. You're really funny, and you're not doing an impression of a comedian. Like, you're doing, like, I go, because so many guys like you that came over in the last couple of years, I'm like, they're just doing an impression of what they think stand-up is. I was like, you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to whether you start as a stand-up or not. Like, people have been doing it for 30 years, and you go, he's still just doing this impression of stand-up comedy.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Yeah, and that's what was back to the Saints of Newark thing.
Oh yeah,
it felt like they were pretending to be Jersey Northeast Italians. Like, there was a not all of it, and they were in and out of it, but it just left that same terror when you watch a bad comic. As an Italian American, I was like, oh no.
You're gonna disagree with me, and your fans will crucify me. I've gotten so much shit on my podcast for saying it. I never liked The Sopranos. I felt like that about the show. I felt like it had great moments here and there.
Yeah.
But like, scenes with like them inside Starbucks being like, they took this from us. The espresso was awesome. I was like, this is embarrassing. This is not a thing that happens. I know Italian guys from Jersey. I know guys that knew guys that were connected. I've met guys that were connected. They didn't care about that sort of thing.
And those characters specifically were over the top. They were like the
yeah.
There was that part of it.
Is it supposed to be funny though? Like, that's the thing I could never put my finger on. I was like, is David Chase being like tongue in cheek?
Right.
I don't know.
I think it was very funny. I mean, people came away thinking it was very funny. I think that, it's just like you said, like, you grew up with people like that, and we had these people like in our family, and then to see it done not well, you start to think, oh, maybe I should just tell people I'm Irish.
It's fun. Like, I have an uncle. He's not in the mob, but he's very much, he's cookie cutter of what the kind of guy they were portraying on The Sopranos was, personality wise, that demographic. And he owned a shop in Jersey, and an independent movie was shooting, and they asked him, could we use your shop to shoot the scene? And they did. Mm-hmm. And I was young I was 18 at the time. I was trying to get into, I was just out of college. I was 21, and I was trying to get into film. Because I thought that's what I was going to do. And I was so enamored that a real movie asked my uncle to use his shop, and I knew what the movie was, and I knew the scene, and I was just like, what was that like? And he's like, what's it like? what the fuck do I know? They offered me $2,000. I was like, fine, I'll fucking clear out for the day. Like, he just was like, so just like, I don't fucking care, you know? And that was the thing, like, that always resonated, like that scene I'm referencing in The Sopranos. I'm like, these guys like don't, I feel like all they're ever thinking about is like, what is making sense financially and business wise right in this moment?
Right. Who's screwing me? And how bad am I getting screwed?
It's time for Breaking Bread with Papa. Hey!